Welcome everyone, safety auditors and their competency. This is what we are going to talk in today's presentations, right? It is all about the competencies of the safety auditors, how frequently we need to make an audit, and so on and so forth. So basically the internal audit, purpose of it, what exactly are we looking at it? As an independent entity, the objective of assurance and the consulting activity designed to add values and probably improve organizational accident improvement procedures or report thereby. It it's supposed to meant or demean the organizations in the fashion that it is having zero accident reports or probably profit the reputations of the organizations over a longer period of time. It helps an organization to accomplish its objective. Accomplish its objectives as in creating a sense of goodwill among the public, among the stakeholders by bringing a systematic discipline approach to evaluate, improve the effectiveness of the risk management, the control, and the governance process thereby. Yes, we are looking at these standards of internal audit as the case might be. Audits must be conducted in accordance with the international standards of professional practices. Now, this has been already been published as an institute internal auditor reports as on when on basis. The International Professional Practice Framework, what are we looking at it? Is a conceptual one which gives us a guidance. Now, this is just a guidance, it is beneficial for the organizations, for anybody and any company if they obey and follow the guidelines. But then this is not mandatory. Remember, I would love it to be a mandatory guidance as far as defining the internal auditing, the code of ethics that governs it, and probably the standards we follow around it. What is strongly recommended is the position papers, the practice advisories, and the practice guide. So, mandatory guidance is all about definitions, all about the code of ethics and the standard. And I would strongly recommend the position papers, practice advisories, and the guides thereof. Now, as a code of ethics, what happens? The internal auditors are expected to apply and uphold the following principles of integrity. Internal auditors, what they are supposed to do, they shall perform their work with honesty, diligence, and responsibility. They shall observe the law, probably make proper disclosures expected by the law and the profession. They shall not knowingly be a party to any illegal activity or engage in acts that are discredentials to the professions of the internal auditing of the operation thereby. They shall respect and contribute to the legitimacy and the ethical objectives of the organization. The second one is all about objectivity. Objectivity for the internal auditors. What are we looking at it? They shall not participate in any activity or probably in any relationship that may impair or be presumed to impair their unbiased assessment. This participation includes those activities or relationship that may be in conflict with the interest of the organization. What is this? What else can they do? They shall not accept anything that may impair or be presumed to impair their professional judgment or cloud their judgment as per possible. They shall not disclose any materials, facts known to them that, if any disclosed, may distort the reporting of the activities under review. Now we come to the third aspect of confidentiality. Now the internal auditors shall be prudent in the use and the protection of the information acquired in the course of their duties. Remember, the internal auditors shall not use information for their personal gain or in any manner that would be contrary to the law or detrimental to the legitimate or ethical objectives of the organization. Let us come to the last word, will be competencies. As an internal auditors, they shall engage only with those services for which they have been the necessary knowledge, necessary skills, or probably the relevant experiences. They shall perform internal audit service in accordance with the internal standards for the professional practice of the internal auditing. Internal auditors shall continually improve their proficiencies and effectiveness and the quality of their services per se. This is what is the code of ethics that goes around it. Let us talk about the independency and the objectivity. Now, what are we looking at it? Independency is the freedom from the condition that threaten the ability of the internal audit activity, or probably the chief audit executives to carry out internal audits responsibility in a most unbiased fashion. To achieve this degree of independence necessary to effectively carry out the responsibilities of internal audit activity, the chief audit executive has direct and unrestricted access to the senior management and the board. They can be achieved through dual reporting relationships. Threats to independence must be managed at an individual auditor's engagement, functional, and organizational level per se. Objectivity is unbiased mental attitude that allows internal auditors to perform engagements in a particular fashion that they believe that the work, products, and that in no quality compromises happens. Objectivity requires the internal auditors do not subordinate their judgment or on audit matters to others. Threats to objectivity must be managed at an individual levels. At an individual auditor's engagement, functional and organizational levels. Remember, we are talking about the conflict of interest is also of primary importance. Conflict of interest is a situation in which the internal auditors, who is in a position of trust, has a competing professional or personal interest. Such competing interest can make it difficult to fulfill his, probably her duties impartially. A conflict of interest exists even if there are no unethical or improper acts to be believed in upon. A conflict of interest can create an appearance of impropriety that can undermine the confidence in the internal auditors, the internal audit activity, and the professions. A conflict of interest can impair an individual ability to perform his, probably her duties and responsibilities objectively. So these are the independence and the objectivity that needs to be taken into consideration. And I've given two picks for you to understand which is elaborative in nature. I simply believe a pick will speak thousand words. Let us talk about the risk assessment. Now, what is a risk? Is the possibility of an event occurring that will have an impact on the achievement of the objective. Risk is measured in terms of impact and probable likelihood. How do we manage risk? Control processes are policies, procedures, activities that are part of control framework designed to ensure that the risks are contained within the risk tolerance established by the risk management process thereby. Now, how do we explain or elaborate on the controls of the internal audit? We need to understand what are controls. There are plentiful of definitions for control. In essence, a control is any action taken by the management, or for that matter, any other parties or system to manage and mitigate the negative impact of risk, increase the likelihood that establishes the objectives and the goals will be achieved. The control environment includes the following elements. One, that of integrity, that of ethical values. Probably we're talking about management philosophies and the operating style. Organizational structures, assignment of authority and responsibility, human resource policies and practices, competence of personnel. This is what needs to be taken into consideration over a period of time. Let us understand with the examples of the controls. Now, one can be simply written policies and procedures. We can have management reviews and approval, the physical safeguard, the authorizations of transaction. And if we have a lot of transaction and a lot of authorization, this may simply check and balances. Segregations of duties, as in organizational structures, the information technological security, password, access logs, etc., etc. The information processing and the application control thereof. So, what are the risk assessment and auditing planning? Now, the Inspector General, if you look into it as a pick where we see a lot of people guarding one of those ideas, proprietary knowledge, and so on and so forth, the Inspector General shall develop a long term annual plan based on the findings of the periodic risk assessment. The plan shall show the individual audits to be conducted during each year and related resources to be devoted on the respective audit as on when on basis. Let us understand the internal audit. Risk assessment, what our audit planning is all about it. The internal audit activity plan of engagement must be based on Documented risk assessment undertaken at least annually. The Auditor General or the Auditor Director should be considering accepting proposed consulting engagement based on engaging potential to improve management of risk, add value, improve the organizational effectiveness over a period of time. We look forward to engagement. Absolute engagement is what we are all dreaming for. Assurances services involved in internal audit, objective assessment of evidence to provide an independent opinion or conclusions regarding an entity operation, function, process, system, or any other subject matter. The nature and the scope of assurance engagement are determined by internal auditors. There are generally three parties involved in assurance services: the person or the group directly involved with the entity, operation, function, process, system, or other subject matter. We talk about the person of the group making assessment to the internal auditor, the person of the group using the assessment over a period of time. For example, the user per se. We talk about the reviewing of an engagement as far as internal audit is concerned. Now, how do we review engagement? Internal audit is also performed to reviews and probably undertake special projects of certain processes and functions that do not require a comprehensive audit. Management reviews assesses effectiveness and responsiveness, provide assistance in identifying opportunities for improvement, and providing assistance in developing and implementing corrective actions necessary to enhance proficiency thereby. We talk about consulting engagement. Consulting services are advisory in nature and are generally performed at the specific request of an engaging clients. Now, the nature, the scope of the consulting engagement are subject to agreement. Now, we may have agreement in place with the engaging clients. Consulting service generally involves two parties. The one of those are the group offering the advices as an internal auditor, and the other of the group seeking or probably receiving the advices. Let's say the engaging in clients. When performing a consulting services, the internal auditor should maintain objectivity, shall not assume management responsibility as on when on basis. The internal audit, we are talking about the audit process, audit cycle, engagement planning, field work, report writing, and follow up is what we are actually going forward to. So we need to review them and review all the consulting engagement. The cycle elements are less involved in an audit as per se. Let us understand and probably dissect the audit process as far as possible. We have to plan for it. We need to go for a background review, as in the references, the contractual requirement, the budgetary information, the policies, the procedure review, the process mapping, the risk and control enhancement, then probably entrance into the conference and the work program development as the case might be. So this is part of the planning, and we have not done the auditing process as such. So field work is where we will start with engaging with the work program execution. We will be looking at the testing of the controls. It's after the implementation execution we are coming to the documentation part of report writing, as in the draft, the approval, the exit conferences, the management responses usually takes around a month, probably 20 working days. Final report issuances of the management responses, and then probably after 6 months of submission of your report, you will make a follow-up visit for the corrective action status updates, verification, status reports to be assured. Yes, we are talking about internal audit. The Auditor General reviews a sample of each state agency's internal report to determine the compliances with the current standard every 1,000 days, or should I say every 3 years. The liaison role of the external audit. The Inspector General shall monitor implementation of state agency responsibilities, their responses to any of this particular report that the state agency have issued by the Auditor General or by any Office of Program Analysis and Government Accountability no later than 180 days or 6 months after an AG's office or the Office of Program Policy and Analysis, the Government Accountability publishes a report on state agency. The Inspector General shall provide a written response to the agency's head on the status of the corrective action thereby. We are talking about annual report not later than September 30th. September 30th, remember, is approximately half a year if your year starts from the month of April. If it starts on the month of January, it will be June 30th. So by the State Surgeon General, summarizing the activities thereof, and this needs to be included in the report, and the summarization of the internal audit activities of the Office of the governance that comes around it, the Office of Inspector General, as it has been notified, OIG. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video very diligently.